We're going to look at the sequencer section now. Both part A and part B have a sequencer section which can run independently or we can link together and we can copy back and forth. So we're going to look at sequence A for now, and then we can talk about how you can link them with sequencer B as well. So let's get ourselves a sound in first, and we're going to get in something that will lend itself to a sequencer. So we're going to go into a polysynth. Let's try this high carb. Need something with little less. That will work for now. So go to sequencer. Now we have the settings, and then we have the step sequencer side here. So we can first turn it on, and there are different versions of it. We have step sequencer. So if I play a chord in a step sequencer, it's playing the whole chord. Whereas if I want to, I can have it playing independent notes one after the other. So up, for example, so if I would play that same C chord now, it's playing in an up direction or a down direction. Or we could have a up and down. We can have as played. Now as played is quite cool actually. What it does is it remembers both the velocity and the notes you play. Now if you're using different versions of the step sequencer, you can actually determine the velocity and the note. We'll look at that in a moment. But you can do it from a played situation. So I could play at the bottom there quite quiet, and then I'm going to play the top note very loud. Now you can hear now, because I played it louder, it's playing brighter. Take it off again. I played it quieter this time, but it's still playing, but not as loud. We'll turn it around. So that's as played, and then we also have random notes. So it's still playing the notes I've chosen, but it's playing them in a random order. Then we have the phrase section where we have these phrases down here. There's lots of preset ones. So for example, let's try an arpeggiator 2. Just go through a couple of them. Basses. And what's cool as well, we can import a MIDI phrase that we've created, and we'll look at doing that in a later session so that we can create, let's say, a bass line and then bring it in and use it as a sequence part. So then we have the sync side of it. How do you want it to sync? Now, if we go back to step sequencer for some of these demos now, we can either sync from first note, and what we mean by that is if I press my notes down. Now at the moment, every time I press a new note on the keyboard, it joins the sequence from wherever it is in the timeline. So it's the 16 notes there. Now what we could choose instead is each note. Every time I press a new note, it will return back to point 1 in the steps. And that sometimes works. I don't use it a lot because I don't find it very useful, but it can be useful. Then we have beat. Now that actually is sometimes referred to as input quantized. So basically it waits for the next beat to arrive before it inserts the note that you're playing. So it makes sure that it stays in time. The next thing we have is link sequencers, so we can link sequencer A and sequencer B, and we can copy between sequences if we want to do that. So we might make this pattern on here and want it to play on the second one, and we can link them together, and we can copy A to B or B to A. So right now there's no actual sound on B. But what I could do is copy to B. So let's look at the performance then. We have the rate. Of course, that syncs in with your Pro Tools session. The gate length is how long the notes stay on for. Let me get a sound that's going to... That's a good one to choose. Then we can swing it as well. Then restart is how far does it go across this before it comes back to the beginning. So you might want a really short one that's just like 4 or 8 notes long. Then how many octaves? Now that's more useful when you're using the note mode. If I show you A. Of course, if we go to 16 again, then we get the full range because it's gone far enough along. Let's turn that back off. So let's look at the sequencer now. The first one is the notes, the second one is the velocity, then we have 2 control sequences that we'll look at in a while. So we can actually put sequence parts in and draw them in. So, and if you see here, you can see the note, so about 12, and go back to our step sequencer, and we'll make this 8 long, and we'll make this 12 up. Next thing you can do as well is turn parts on and off. Add some velocity in. Now another cool trick is if you press the shift key while dragging across the sequencer window, then you can actually draw it in real time rather than moving them up and down. So there we have velocity and notes, pretty straightforward. Then we have these things called control sequences as well. We can use these to control the modulation within a sound. So we could actually use a sequencer down here to control how for example, the filter was opening. So let's get a new sound that's much more sort of around all the time. In fact, we're going to get a string sound. Let's get something much smoother. A pad, let's find. Where's those slow strings? Now what I'd like to do is control the cutoff of these strings using a control lane. So we come here, we've got a control sequencer. So now this is not going to run making notes anymore. As you see, what we can do as well, come back to here and cut off. We're going to mod it from sequencer 1. And come back to sequencer now. And vary the effect of it there. Let's use the second lane and we're going to control the resonance. So as you can see now, we've got some really cool sound going on there. Could mess with it a bit more. Now what we could do as well now is let's put B back on. And straight away what we could do, we could go copy to B and link them. And come here on B now. Sequencer 1, sequencer 2. Let's make it a high pass. You see you can get some really complex stuff going on. What you might want to do is a band pass actually. And over time, you can do some really complex stuff. Let's go back to B again, to the sequence. Speed this one up. Let's slow it down actually. Nice and organic now. So there we are, sequencers in action. Just to remind you again, this is where we select what kind of sequencer we're going to use, whether it's linked to the second sequencer, how to copy it. We can latch it so it's on all the time. So it's running all the time now. Or just when you press the notes. How you synchronize it, first note, each note or beat. The speed and the swing and the gate length. how long it is using the restart, how many octaves if you're using the notes, phrases, and we'll import a phrase later into it to show you that in action. Then we've got note, velocity, controls as well. There we are. That's the sequencers in depth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next session.